Warning, censorship. Warning, censorship. Warning, censorship. Warning, censorship.
Hi everybody, Ezra Levant here. How you doing? It's March 12th. It's a Friday. It's so good to be back in this chair. You know, I have been out and about. I've been doing other things, and I have not been able to do the live stream, which I enjoy because I like the banter. I like the free-flowing style of it. I like the super chats. And, you know, there's things I want to say here. And I've just been busy, so I'm grateful to my colleagues and friends who have been filling in for me these past weeks. As usual, my friend Justin puts together a list of suggested things I've been chatting about, videos, things I find online, and I'm going to try and get through some of it today. And just because it's been so long, I'll remind you what a super chat is, although I think most of you know. Super chat is when you make a comment in the chat window there, but instead of just making it regular, you put a few dollars behind it, or frankly any currency, and it puts it in a bright color and it appends it to the top of the window there so everyone gets to see it. And the reason we like those is that YouTube actually shares, I think it's 70% of the revenue with us, so it's a way to fight the demonetization. On tonight's show, and by tonight's show I mean my paywalled show that goes up every day at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, I talked to one of my favorite British pundits, Calvin Robinson, about a crazy idea that I think started as a joke, but has immediately been taken seriously by the wokerati, and it's a gender curfew. You know what? Let's just show you. This is a member of the House of Lords. She's a Green Party member. I thought she was Labour. She's Green. She's talking about a murder of a young woman, which is terrible. I should tell you there's 35 million women in the United Kingdom, and last year 9 women were murdered by people who didn't know them. There were over 100 who were murdered by people who knew them. Unfortunately, that is the nature of murders, and most violence against women is it's someone they know. And by that I mean husband, boyfriend, ex-husband, ex-boyfriend, something like that. So a curfew implies that it's all men are lurking, all men are a ticking time bomb, all men are potential murderers, rapists, when in fact in the mighty United Kingdom, about 70 million citizens, about 35 million, let me just get that UK population. Yeah, it's just under 70 million. 9 women in a country of 70 million, 9 women in a population of 35 million women, 9 were killed. I'm not downplaying the seriousness of the 9, but I don't think it's going to be stopped by putting a curfew on 35 million innocent men. Here, let me show you the speech, the short speech in the House of Lords.
And in the week that the woman Sarah Everard was abducted and we suppose killed because remains have been found in a woodland in Kent, I would argue that at the next opportunity for any bill that's appropriate, I might actually put in an amendment to create a curfew for men on the streets after 6 p.m, which I feel would make women a lot safer, and discrimination of all kinds would be lessened.
Hey, did you hear that part? Discrimination of all kinds would be lessened. I'm going to discriminate against 35 million men, and thereby discrimination will be lessened. I'm going to prejudge 35 million men, and therefore prejudice will be lessened. I'm going to engage in sexism and prejudice. I'm going to engage in group punishment, and thereby justice will be done. Now, I actually think she was saying that as an absurd proposition. There is a British tradition of absurd satire. maybe you've heard Jonathan Swift's A Modest Proposal of eating the poor. And it was called A Modest Proposal precisely because it was not modest. It was an outrageous proposal. That's a kind of humor. You would think that people would scoff at that, but in these days, I really think that woman was joking. Can we show the other clip? Here is the, and we're going to show this again tonight. We're going to talk about it with Calvin. But I want to show you the First Minister of Wales. So it took me a while to learn this. I didn't learn this in school. I had to learn this by visiting the UK. The official name of that place is the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. That's the full name of the country. And so it's Great Britain and Northern Ireland. Great Britain is made up of England, Scotland, and Wales. They call those countries, believe it or not. So it's the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. Great Britain is England, Wales, Scotland. There's a lot to know. So Wales is one of the countries in the United Kingdom. I think it's the smallest by population. I'd have to check. And they have a Labour First Minister. So he's not called the Prime Minister, he's called the First Minister. It's sort of like being the Premier of a province, I think. They have a First Minister of Scotland also. They devolve some of the powers. It's like a province. And I should tell you that Wales had the most brutal pandemic lockdown in the United Kingdom. Just absolutely insane lockdowns. You weren't even allowed to leave your home, really. And so when that First Minister heard this idea of a gender curfew, he actually didn't think of it as a joke or a satire or an absurd thought experiment. He said, yeah, I'll think about it. Let me show you an interview. And you'll notice there's no smiling here, no banter. I mean, I'm not saying that the murder of a woman is cause for mirth, but I think what was clearly an absurd and desperate and exasperated jest, might be the wrong word, by that Green Party peer, it's taken dead seriously by these two. Take a look.
Some people have said sometimes that if there were an area particularly where there were concerns, women maybe being assaulted or feeling particularly scared, that there should be a curfew on men for a period of time. Is that something that you would consider?
It wouldn't be on the top of the list of things that we would consider because it would be at the very best a temporary intervention.
But you would, I'm sorry, to be clear, you say you wouldn't, it's not the top of your list. I can only take it from that you could not rule out that being a potentially something that you would do.
If there were a crisis and you needed to take dramatic action that allowed that crisis to be drawn down, then of course you'd be prepared to consider all measures that would make a difference. But
you'd be prepared to consider all matters, including a curfew on all men. What's so funny is that, of course, the British political class, and I'd have to look up that First Minister again, I am willing to bet you that he believes that you can be a man or a woman simply by identifying or declaring it as such. And so I think that if they were to bring in a curfew in the United Kingdom for no men on the streets allowed after, I think, did they say 6 p.m.? I think you would see millions of men identifying as trans or whatever you have to do. Maybe that's the plan. Maybe that's the secret plan, is just get half of the UK to say we're trans. But why not? And what are you, some sort of bigot? You saying that I don't look like a woman? Are you denying me my gender expression or gender identity? Those are two different things, by the way, I've learned. Yeah, that's quite something. That's the United Kingdom. I see also that Scotland, which is part of Great Britain, it's one of the countries, has actually passed their hate speech law that includes criminalizing private conversations in your own home. I'm not making that up. Conversations around your dinner table with your own family are now subject to the Scottish hate speech law. And the police. Yeah, look at this. MSPs, members of the Scottish Parliament, approved Scotland's controversial hate crime law. Let me read a little bit. MSPs have passed Scotland's controversial new hate crime law. The legislation consolidates existing law and extends protection for vulnerable groups with a new offense of stirring up hatred. So it's an emotion crime. If you make people upset, it's a crime. Law was passed by 82 votes to 32, a day later than expected, after MSPs ran out of time on Wednesdays while debating a raft of amendments. Opponents of the bill said they still have concerns about a possible chilling of free speech. There were 4 abstentions. Who are those brave for? Justice Secretary Humza Yousaf said, "I am delighted Holyrood," that's their parliament, "has backed this powerful legislation that is fitting for the Scotland we live in. Parliament has sent a strong and clear message to victims, perpetrators, communities, and to the wider society that offences motivated by prejudice will be treated seriously and not be tolerated." Except I don't believe that, because I want to show you Humza Yousaf himself. I want to show you the contempt with which he views people who have the wrong race. I'm going to show you a clip now. And imagine if this were a white justice minister counting how many black people there were, counting how many Jews, counting how many gay people there were in government. The first thing you'd say is, "You're a bit weird. You're making lists of people." And the contempt as he spits out that word white. Take a look at this. This is the guy who just brought in a hate speech law. Take a look.
When the most senior positions in Scotland are filled almost exclusively by those who are white. Take my portfolio alone. The Lord President, white. The Lord Justice Clerk, white. Every High Court judge, white. The Lord Advocate, white. The Solicitor General, white. The Chief Constable, white. Every Deputy Chief Constable, white. Every Assistant Chief Constable, white. The Head of the Law Society, white. The Head of the Faculty of Advocates, white. Every Prison Governor, white. And not just Justice. The Chief Medical Officer, white. The Chief Nursing Officer, white. The Chief Veterinary Officer, white. The Chief Social Work Advisor, white. Almost every trade union in this country headed by people who are white. In the Scottish Government, every Director General is white. Every chair of every public body is white.
Oh, there's nothing worse than the whites. The white. Are you white? Easy, Tiger. Easy, 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 easy. I thought the goal was to judge people on the content of their character, not the color of their skin. I thought the goal was a colorblind society where we are harmonious. But there is nothing more angry than that man who only sees race. And frankly, lad, if you hate the Scots so much, why are you there? He's originally of Pakistani descendants. Imagine if a white Scot were to go to Pakistan, have every success in the world, and rise to become the Justice Minister of Pakistan. It's unthinkable. That wouldn't be allowed. And imagine he stands up in Pakistan and says, "Everywhere I look, there's Pakistani judges and Pakistani..." I mean, it's unthinkable. The first answer would be, you're a bit odd because you're living there. If you don't like Pakistani people, why are you in Pakistan? And really, isn't the goal to get along as individuals? But you can see very, very clearly it is not. He does not want to judge people based on individuals. But the purpose I show you that video today is, how's that not hate speech? He's saying that, I mean, just to state the obvious, when he's saying people are white, he's saying it as an insult. He's saying it as something that's a problem. He's not saying, "Woo, you guys are great." He's saying, "I can't believe it. It's offensive. It's appalling. We need to change." Like he's saying it's a problem, like it's a disease. The hate speech law, which I went through in great detail last year, a video that has 200,000 views, We're all guilty of it. Every single person's guilty of it. By the way, one of the things I looked at in that video I did last year was that if you do something wrong today and you get swept up by police for it, if you have something, if you tweeted or did a Facebook post a year ago that could be called racist, your crime let's say you robbed a guy on the street today. I'm not for robbing, I think that's a crime. I'm not for robbery. So you commit a robbery, you grab someone's purse on the street, you're charged with robbery. If 2 years ago you retweeted or put on Facebook a meme that could be called intolerant, your robbery is now deemed a hate crime under this bill. That's just one example. Stirring up hatred, can you grab my old video on that? Because I really go through the law line by line. There's a real focus on theaters and comedy and stuff like that, like on live theaters. And the law is really bizarre about how it focuses on directors and producers and actors and stuff like that. What is wrong with you? Were you, as a child, were you disturbed by some Shakespeare play or something? And that's the thing, Shakespeare, the greatest playwright of the English language, perhaps the greatest playwright of any language, he operated under the law 400 years ago that was obviously a lot stricter. They didn't have the same freedom of expression as we have now. You had to be more deferential to the king or the queen. And here's some of the law. An offense is aggravated by prejudice if, whether or not there's a specific victim of the offense is motivated wholly or partly by malice and ill will towards a group of persons based on the group being defined by reference to a characteristic mentioned in subsection 2. Keep going. Hey, why don't we play some of this? Can we play some of this? Okay, we'll just play some. Why don't you just pick it up here? Just play a couple minutes. Towards a group of persons based on the group being defined by reference to a characteristic mentioned in subsection 2. And here's the list of characteristics they have. They are age, disability, race, color, nationality, including citizenship, or ethnic or national origins. So his racist anti-white speech would be covered. D, religion, or in the case of a social or cultural group, perceived religious affiliation. E, sexual orientation. F, transgender identity. G, variations in sex characteristics. Who knows what that means? Just to be clear, if you hate someone for other reasons, though, it doesn't count as a hate crime. I'll read the section that says so. It is immaterial whether or not the offender's malice and ill will is also based to any extent on any other factor. Oh, and just one more thing. Take a look at this. Evidence from a single source is sufficient to prove that an offense is aggravated by prejudice. So if you made a tweet about how racist and hateful Scots are, like Hamza Yusuf did, and then a month later you punch a Scot in the face, that's a hate crime. Even if you didn't say or do anything racist when you punched them, let's say you were drunk at a bar. But if you had a tweet from like a month before, tough luck, mate, you're a hate criminal now. I'm using Hamza Yusuf as the example here because he's such a weird and brazen and unrepentant bigot. But of course, in real life, he would never be charged with these hate crimes. Of course not. Just like here in Canada, we have human rights commissions, but there has never been a single case of a Muslim extremist, not even a full-fledged terrorist. That's a 24-minute video. I won't make you watch too much more of it. But Justin, can you go forward to the part that goes to after theaters or something? I just thought that was really weird. Like, why do you hate theaters and comedy? Almost every joke you can make offends some sensibility. It's that contradiction, that juxtaposition that makes us laugh. I mean, unless you're telling jokes for like 3-year-olds. Why did the chicken cross the road to get to the other side? Why were the strawberries upset? Because their parents were in a jam. Like, unless you're telling children's jokes, you're going to be offending someone. He hates it. Yeah, go ahead, play a bit here. There's a performer in the play, so it's targeting actors? And it goes on at great lengths about censoring plays? What? But it goes further. You're not going to believe this. You know that it's against the law to be in possession of child pornography, right? And that makes sense because a crime was actually committed in the creation of that pornography. A child was raped. So it's not only the perpetuation of the crime, it's evidence of a crime that was already committed. I agree, obviously, with the criminalization of possession of child porn, which is the rape of children. But Hamza Yusuf's law copies the language of possession of child pornography and applies it to anything politically controversial, anything politically insulting. I kid you not. Take a look. Go through this with me. A person commits an offense if the person has possession of threatening or abusive material with a view to communicating the material to another person, and either the person intends in doing so to stir up hatred against a group of persons based on the grouping defined by reference to a characteristic mentioned in subsection 3, or it is likely that if the material were communicated, hatred would be stirred up against such a group. So anything... So, I don't want to play any more of that because, frankly, you should watch the whole thing if you're interested. It's 24 minutes. You can find it easily on our website. 200,000 people have watched that video, many of them in Scotland, obviously. I mean, I really went through the law line by line, as you can see. But just to put a closure on that there, so if you are in possession of some Facebook meme, like if your laptop has some mean joke on it, and you don't even have to intend to circulate it, if you circulated it, and it could, you saw the language, if it could stir up hatred, you're guilty of a hate crime. So simply possessing something that is hurtful, hateful, could stir up feelings, you're a criminal by the possession of it as if it were child pornography. So like I say, every single citizen of Scotland is guilty. Unless I guess you don't have a computer, don't have a phone, never text, never email. I guess that's some people. But anyone, any normal human who shares a joke, you're guilty. The only question is, will you be charged? So Hamza Yusuf, who looks for people of the wrong race and gives rants in the Scottish Parliament about the wrong race, he won't be charged. He's the guy doing the charging. How do you feel about that, by the way? How do you feel about that maniac who, oh my God, I see Scottish people everywhere. They're surrounding me and they're terrible. How do you feel about that guy being in charge of this hate speech law? Yeah, not great. It's 12:23. Let me take a minute to read some super chats. Alex, $10. Ezra, you guys are legendary. Keep up the great work. The only thing I want to say is, can you hire a sound guy? Your audio is always clipping. Kills my ears, especially with the earbuds. Bless the Rebel crew. What do you think that is, Justin? Is it where I wear my microphone? Is it because I'm turning around all the time? Justin says it's not clipping here, but he'll look into it. Maybe I'm wearing this thing wrong, and sometimes I look in there, and sometimes I'm looking at my computer, but I take your point, Alex. James McCann, $5, thank you. Thank you, AMT, $5. Globe and Mail article today, Patty Haidu consulting other countries about vaccine passports, and we'll make a decision soon. If this happens, can we fight it, and how? I think so. If you look at our Constitution, you want to call up our Charter of Rights? We've gone through a lot of the Constitution, obviously, on freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, freedom of association, freedom of conscience. These are a lot of the freedoms that are rolled over by the bans on churches, for example, or even lockdowns violate your freedom of association. But go down a little bit here to a little bit further. There you go, number 7. Legal rights. Everyone has the right to life, liberty, and security of the person, and the right not to be deprived thereof except in accordance with the principles of fundamental justice. I would also throw in sections 8 and 9. Everyone has the right to be secure against unreasonable search or seizure. And 9, Everyone has the right not to be arbitrarily detained or imprisoned. Scroll down a little bit more. I'm trying to remember. Do a little bit further. There we go. Number 12. Everyone has the right not to be subjected to any cruel and unusual treatment or punishment. And then I would just do 15, number 15 there a little bit further down. Every individual is equal before and under the law and has the right to the equal protection and equal benefit of the law without discrimination, and in particular, without discrimination based on, and I'm going to skip ahead to the one I'm interested in, physical disability. Thanks. So all those sections I just read, security of the person. Do you know what that means? Like your own body. That's what they mean when they say of security of the person. They're talking about your body. Search and seizure. You can't search my body. Cruel and unusual treatment, and you can't poke me with. You can't jam things into my bloodstream. And the last one, section 15. You can't discriminate against me based on my physical disabilities. So I think that we just went through probably 4 different constitutional grounds upon which a vaccine passport is unconstitutional. Then there's other grounds too. Like, for example, we're learning that some of these vaccines are actually a little bit dangerous, that they've stopped using some of them. Can you Google the news on AstraZeneca? Because I think there's some news. I haven't been following closely enough. I think AstraZeneca, I think they've stopped using that in some countries. Is that right? Did you see that news, Justin? I think in Denmark or something. Several years. Yeah, throw it on the screen. I don't. Let's just read it together. Several European countries halt use of AstraZeneca vaccine. Denmark, Ireland, and Norway have stopped. Sorry, Iceland. I thought it said Ireland. Denmark, Iceland, thank you. And Norway have stopped administering the shot, while Italy has banned the use of a batch of AstraZeneca doses as a precaution after an unconfirmed number of people developed blood clots. Health authorities in Denmark, Norway, and Iceland on Thursday, very liberal countries, suspended the use of AstraZeneca's COVID-19 vaccine after reports of blood clots among some people who had received the inoculation. The Danish Health Authority on Thursday halted the use of the AstraZeneca vaccine for 14 days. It follows reports of serious cases of blood clots among vaccinated people, a statement read. However, the authorities stopped short of saying there was a direct link between the vaccine and the blood clots at the time being. It is currently not possible to conclude whether there's a link. We are acting early. It needs to be thoroughly investigated, Danish Health Minister Magnus Heunicke said on Twitter. That's a hell of a name, isn't it? Polly Roy, a virologist at the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine. That sounds like a great school. I believe in hygiene and I love the tropics. I should have gone. That's where I should have gone to school. Told Deutsche Welle that she believes the clots were, however, probably not due to the vaccine itself. You know, maybe they have some underlying problems, said Roy. Hey guys, you're being so judgy. How many countries have suspended the jab? Shortly after Denmark's announcement, Iceland and Norway followed suit and stopped administering the vaccine. Italy also, blah, blah, blah. So my point is, do you sense that they haven't really finished testing this thing? Well, they say that. They're going to test it some more. They got to conclude it some more. They're not quite sure. They're suspending it for 14 days. Would you want to be the guy to take that on the 15th day? I mean, if this coronavirus was like the Black Plague that killed a third of Europe, half the citizens of Marseille. Remember we did that monologue last year about the city of Marseille, the last city to be hit with the plague. I think 40% of the city of Marseille was killed by the plague from one ship that came in. Ebola kills what, half the people who get it? If that's what we were talking about, I'd say, well, I'll take the risk of a blood clot better than dying. Jab me. But if you've got a disease that has a 99.9% recovery rate, and if you're under 50 and healthy, it has like a 99.99% recovery rate, would you take a jab of something that has all these reports of blood clot? Like, would you? If it was Black Plague, I'd inject myself with almost anything, because, you know, it's coin toss, you're going to die from that thing. But this ain't that. This is a bad case of the flu. You know, average flu years we've discussed before, you got about 8,000 people dying in Canada. So far, in a year from the coronavirus, it's just over 20,000. So it's a little more than double, a little more than double typical year. And by the way, they claim there's no regular flu, so, I mean, you can believe that, or you can think that perhaps there's a chance that some of those regular flus are being counted as coronavirus. In any event, are you ready to be a guinea pig? The risk of a blood clot for a 99-point-something% recovery rate virus? You tell me. Let's catch up here on the Super Chats. Ray W., £5. Ezra, can the hate speech get backdated to take Yusuf to court? I don't think you need to go back. I think every single day of his life he says something hateful. And I think maybe that's the only way to really defeat such a law, is to use it against the fancy people and make them sweat a bit. I know in Canada, our criminal code provisions on hate speech have to be personally approved by the Attorney General. So that's basically our Justice Minister. I don't think that's in this law. I haven't looked at it lately. But wouldn't that be something if the Justice Minister himself was accused of breaking the law and the Justice Minister had to approve the prosecution of the Justice Minister? I wonder if he'd even step aside. Lee McCamey, $10, thank you. Faust, $5. What's new in Cheesecake Nation? Polar bears are racist because they are too white. Smack my hand. Now, Cheesecake Nation can mean so many things. I think you mean Ontario, because Doug Ford has talked about cheesecake. Yeah, I mean, can you grab the front page of the Sun? Joe Warmington tweeted it. Great story. Toronto is really a megalopolis. You know what that word means? It's there's Toronto, and then there's Mississauga, and there's all these cities that really abut each other. There's really no end to Toronto before you get to Vaughan. Like, if you didn't see the sign that announced the new city, you'd think you're just in one massive city. And the Greater Toronto Area, as it's called, has over 6 million. Yeah, so look at this. Let's just take a look. This is a great cover. Feast or famine. And you can see the Montanas on the left. And you can see 168 Sushi on the right. I know both of those restaurants. I've been to both of those restaurants because I know that exact intersection. That's a great sushi restaurant, by the way. And and Montana's, you gotta love I've eaten at both of those. I know that exact intersection. Let me read it. On one side of Steeles Avenue, a sushi joint is packed because it's considered York region. On the other, a steakhouse sits empty because it's Toronto. Now the hungry are crossing the border for a sit-down meal. And one of the cars in the parking lot that Joe found was a Toronto City bureaucrat's car. You know what? I recommend that sushi restaurant, Justin. I don't know if you've ever been there. It's an all-you-can-eat sushi place, which is sort of cool, but you know, you fill up pretty quick on rice. Do you like sushi? Yeah? It's a good place to go. So isn't that funny? I mean, I used to drop the kids off and I'd sit in that Montana's and I'd work on my computer, so I guess it's closed. I mean, I haven't been to a restaurant in Ontario, like a sit-down restaurant, in a year. Have you? I was in Alberta the other day and I went out for a restaurant for the first time in ages. It's bizarre. Like, really, does the virus, is it different on one side of Steeles than on the other, right? That's the madness here. What's the difference? Politics, not science, not medicine. I'm not going to get into restaurant reviews. I'm just hungry, that's all. I didn't have breakfast. You know, I know folks are getting Chick-fil-A. I had that yesterday, so I'm hungry. The Conservative, $5. Any update on the website for companies that don't acknowledge or allow medical exemptions? Thank you for asking. I apologize for the delay, and the delay is only on me. I really did mean to finish it, and I'm sorry. I asked for your patience, and I know I've done that before. We are in what's called a target-rich environment. Every single day there's a crisis of some sort. And we are growing, and we have new teammates, and we have new stuff going on, and it's still not enough to do all the work we have to do. And there's only so many days and hours in a day, and you don't want to be burnt out. And I'm not claiming that I am. I'm just saying I know that that's on me. I'm late on that. I've got about 4 videos I got to do. And by the way, we get good news all the time, too. It's not just bad. I think we got 2 videos today, right, Justin, of victories on Fight to Find stuff. Sheila has a video about a guy arrested in Montreal that we helped. They dropped the charges against him, so that's some good news. And Drea has a case also. So you know what? You got, and they're going to do videos on those, and to show you our work. It's also important to note the victories, because otherwise you're going to get depressed all the time, right? And I'm glad I know that sushi restaurant's open. That's where I'm going. I'm going there. I love that place. It's a bit of a drive from where I am. A. Southey, $5. Hi, Ezra. What do you think about Davila's husband having financial conflict of interest regarding Moderna and Pfizer? You know what? I think it's outrageous. I think a lot of people on Doug Ford's science table have similar conflicts. And it's outrageous that the people who are advocating to lock down the city have direct personal conflicts with companies that pay them or their spouses to promote lockdown-oriented policies. If you're in the vaccination business, which the public health officer of Ontario's husband is, of course you want to lock down. Of course you want fear and panic. Of course you want vaccine passports. Imagine that. Imagine being in the vaccine business. How do you feel about vaccine passports? You freaking love it. It's basically forcing the entire country to buy your stuff. I mean, there's nothing, that is an unbelievable dream for any monopoly or oligopoly to force people to buy your stuff, even if it's dangerous, as that article from, I think that was Reuters we were reading, right? About the AstraZeneca. You want to jab that in your veins? You're a pregnant woman. You want to jab that in your veins? You know, we went through the various elements of the Charter of Rights that I think are offended by a vaccine passport. You're pregnant. Do you have to get one? Do you have to get a jab? I don't think any of these vaccines have been tested on pregnant women yet. Have they? I don't think they have. So you've got to be a guinea pig? Your baby has to be a guinea pig? Thalidomide much? I don't think any of them have been tested on young children. One's in the process of being tested on children. Who would let their children be the test cases for that? I nominate Bill Gates. I nominate Bill Gates, Theresa Tam, Justin Trudeau, Eileen DeVille, and all the public health officers. I nominate them to have their own loved ones, their own babies, their own pregnant women and their families. I nominate them to be the guinea pigs for these vaccines that they're pushing on the rest of us. Olga Jenny, $5. CDC website shows that AstraZeneca vaccine has not been authorized for emergency use yet, let alone approved for use. Okay, I don't know about that, and I would have to check that before I could say so. Bracketor, $5. I hate every single race. Does that denote a bias? Well, understand the law is not about a bias, it's about hate, so you, sir, are a criminal. I think every culture has aspects of it that are hateable. That's why I call myself anti-culturalist. See, I have a slightly different approach than you. I say that love and hate, contempt and respect, these are natural human emotions that all of us feel from time to time. If you don't have an emotional reaction to things, you have an incomplete personality. It is healthy and normal to be repelled by certain things and disgusted by certain things, and to be compelled by other things. And I don't think our emotional reaction should be criminalized. I think all that should be criminalized is what we do, not how we feel or what we think, or in most cases what we say. But this law criminalizes how you feel, even in your own house. I'm talking about the Scottish hate crime law. You're going to add $5. This is not a vaccine by the legal definition. We are the test subjects. I can't verify this, but some of these jabs may actually be placebos. Who knows, eh? Like, seriously, who knows? Viking Insane, $2. Ontario, more like Ontario. I think that needs a little bit more workshopping there, but I see where you go. Ontario, got it. Ontario, more like Ontario. It's got to be shorter, right? It's got to be. You know what? I think you're onto something there, but you got to work on that a bit more. Lee McCamey, $5. Bill C-15 needs to stay in focus, or we will lose more than we thought possible. I think that's the suicide law. Lucum 25, $7. I heard government workers aren't fully returning into. Hey, could you do me a favor while I'm talking about these? Can you go to Epoch Times and get Larry Solomon's new column up on vaccines? You might have to log in with a free registration. It takes only a minute to do. I want to go through Larry Solomon's column today because it's right on point. Perfect timing. And I should say Larry Solomon is the newest member of the Rebel News Advisory Board. I heard government workers aren't fully returning into office until at least 2022 because they're preparing for a third or fourth wave. Will it ever end? Well, look, I don't know what government you're referring to. I don't know which department. I don't know what country you're referring to. I think a lot of government workers have enjoyed the last year very, very much. There's that old union saying, not a minute on the day, not a penny under pay. I think this has been a wonderful staycation by which so many public sector workers have had their hours cut back, in fact, in some cases to zero, while getting paid. They have loved it. Let me know if it's Epoch Times, it's the Canadian site. Yeah. Skylar Champagne, $5. Are you looking for any interns in the Edmonton area? Would love to join you warriors in the information arena. Well, I know that Sheila could use a hand on things. So I think my answer would be we would be open to it. And why don't you send an application in to careers@rebelnews.com. Now I see some more super chats sneaking in here. Sheriff family, $5. P. Vine Inn, located in High Prairie, Alberta, sent out letters to stating staff are required to get the COVID-19 vaccine and provide proof of the vaccination. I think that's likely illegal, maybe a violation of employment law, labor law, privacy law. Like, can you even ask someone, are you vaccinated? Like, if someone were to come in here and if I were to say, are you disabled? Are you in a wheelchair? Do you have AIDS? Like, a good way to think about the vaccine, mandatory vaccine, is would we require someone to take an AIDS vaccine? And would we require people to answer questions about that? Probably not. Your medical history is private. So why would we suddenly say you need a vaccine for this COVID flu? Mike G, $5. The Highwire video is a coming COVID catastrophe. Okay. I see your link there, Mike. Thank you. Jewy, $5.49. Opioid-related deaths up 59% year over year. Yeah, every single day we get the scare report of how many people died from COVID-19 or died with COVID-19. Can we also hear the stats of how many people died because their cancer was not detected, because their surgery was postponed, because of depression, suicide, drug use? Can we get those daily too? Because I'm pretty sure they're bigger. Jason wants $5. President of the company I work for visited yesterday. I was told to wear a mask. Everyone ran to get theirs on. I did not. No one said a word to me. Yeah, I think the mask is the flag of lockdownism. And there are some places in the world where I must wear a mask, and the price of my disagreement is too large, and it would destroy what I'm doing. But I can assure you that that list of places is very small, and I simply don't comply in the rest of the world. I will not. Okay, did you find that Lawrence Solomon thing? Okay, it's 12:45. I think I really caught up on the super chats, right? I want to take you through Larry's column. The biggest COVID-19 vaccine skeptics, frontline healthcare workers. Larry Solomon in, okay, yeah, we just got to log in there, no problem. It's a good article, and it is, what I like about it is it's meticulously footnoted in the forms of clickable hyperlinks. So I just read you the headline of the piece, which you might find startling. But I would like to suggest to you that what he says is backed up. All of his sources are mainstream. So we'll just get that back up on the screen. I think you just got to log in and stay logged. Yeah, no problem. 12:46. I think I've caught up on the super chat. We're just going to wait for a second till we get into there. You know, yesterday I did a video in Yiddish. I went to Jewish school when I was a kid, like I'm talking grade 1 through 6, and we learned Yiddish, which is like German. And to this day, what I learned in Yiddish school has helped me sort of understand German, because it's sort of a really slangy, almost like, I wouldn't say like a Cockney, what Cockney English is to regular English, Yiddish is to German. Like, it's just got a very different accent, and like some of the words are identical. Some of the words are identical but pronounced differently, like tog or tag or finf and fumpf. But if you know one, you can sort of know the other. Yiddish was a language that Jews spoke in Central Europe when, during the Middle Ages. And when a number of those Jews moved to North America, of course many Jews, my own family included, 118 years ago, took the local language, took English, or if they went to Quebec, they took French. But a number of Jews maintained Yiddish, just like there's some Mennonites or Hutterites or Amish that might speak Dutch or German. There's a community of Jews in Montreal, in Canada, who speak Yiddish primarily. And they're quite religious, and they wear distinctive, again, from Central Europe fashion, high fashion, in Middle Ages. They dress distinctively, so they're speaking Yiddish. They're dressed distinctively, and they're very religious. It's like the Amish. In fact, they're dressed sort of like the Amish. There's this funny movie called Blazing Saddles, where some Jews are crossing to California for the gold rush, and they encounter some Amish, and they think they're Orthodox Jews. It's a very funny scene. But because they are conspicuous in their appearance, and because they are reclusive in terms of interacting with the outward community, they are picked on from time to time. And because they're religious, they pray every day, including after the 8 p.m. curfew. So if you're not allowed on the street, and if you have to pray at a synagogue, and you go to synagogue after the curfew, well, guess what? The police are implementing their COVID tickets on these Yiddish-speaking religious Jews in Montreal brutally. Largely, we've been focused on how authorities punish churches, like in Edmonton, that Pastor James Coates. We don't have big Yiddish-speaking Jewish religious communities in Western Canada, for sure. There's not a lot in Toronto who speak Yiddish, but in Montreal, there are neighborhoods where there's Yiddish-speaking Jews. So I recorded a video in Yiddish saying to these folks, we've helped Christians, we've helped people of every background, we've helped businesses, we'll help churches, we'll help you. If you get a COVID ticket, don't pay it, fight it. And so can I play for you just a couple minutes? It won't be more than that because you won't understand a word of it. Here's a video I did yesterday in Yiddish. Take a look. Hello, my name is Ezra Levant. Ich bin der Herausgeber von rebelnews.com, a neues website in Toronto. Das ist a message for the Yiddish-rednecker community von Montreal. Was ist geworden gezielt durch die Government par strenge Gesetzen von Covid. Ich habe gelernt Jiddisch in der Judlamed Parrotschule in Calgary, wenn ich bin gewesen ein Kind, und es ist gut, es noch einmal zu reden. Jeder Tag sehe ich Videos von der Police herumfahren die Gassen und teilen teure Tickets. Und ich sehe, als sie zielen zum ersten Jeden. Es ist klar zu mir, als sie nutzen die Pandemie wie ein Ausrede zu... Any more of that. I just want to let you know that the word for being the boss of Rebel News is the Herausgeber. I'm the Herausgeber around here. Just don't you forget it. Anyways, I enjoyed doing that video. And thanks to Yankee Pollock for helping me. Obviously, my Yiddish is extremely rusty. I haven't studied it since I was in grade 6, which was in the last century. So my accent was terrible. That's why we put up the Yiddish subtitles. We didn't put English subtitles. We put Yiddish subtitles because otherwise I don't think actual Yiddish speakers would understand a word I said. But as I said in an email to supporters last night, I don't care if you're Jewish, synagogue, Christian church, Sikh temple, Muslim mosque, if you have been given an inappropriate, abusive, rights-crushing COVID ticket, do not pay it. Fight it. We'll fight it for you. Go to fightthefinds.com. I haven't got an update from our team, but the last I checked, we had well over 500 cases that we were fighting. And like I said, we had just 2 wins just today. In fact, one of the wins was from that Jewish community there. Often, all it takes is to lawyer up, and the police and the prosecutors say, oh, you're actually going to make us prove the case? You're actually going to make us go to court? Okay, you can go. They are counting on people to be terrified and just to pay it. They're counting on this to be a real cash grab, frankly. All right, let's get back to that Larry Solomon piece. What do frontline healthcare workers and first responders know about COVID-19 vaccines that politicians and their public health advisors don't? According to a January analysis by Gallup, 51%, and I'm not going to click on all those links right now, but maybe we'll click on the first one just to show that there's a link there. You want to click on that Gallup? So you can see, yeah, frontline workers no keener than others to get vaccine, and this is from the Gallup's own website. And it goes through. Okay, so I'm not going to get this kind of micro detail, but I'm just, and you can click back now. All I'm doing there is showing you that for every assertion Larry makes, he links to an underlying factual source, like a footnote, right? So what we did just there is we clicked on that hyperlinked. Yeah, exactly. According to a January analysis by Gallup, 51% of healthcare workers and first responders polled in December were unconvinced of the merits of getting vaccinated, even if the vaccine, quote, was free, available, FDA approved, and 90% effective. Huh. Gallup found these results especially concerning since those at highest risk of exposure to COVID-19, the professionals required to meet America's health, safety, and critical economic needs, whom the National Academies of Engineering, Science, and Medicine define as Tier 1A workers, were the likeliest to refuse vaccination, 34%. Isn't that crazy? They're the likeliest to refuse it. And again, he has a hyperlink. The frontline workers proved to be as defiant as Gallup's survey of their intentions anticipated. In California, over half of Tehama County's hospital workers at St. Elizabeth Community Hospital, an estimated 50% of frontline workers in Riverside County, and 20% to 40% in LA County refused the vaccine, according to a report in the Los Angeles Times. So again, the leading newspaper of the West Coast. These are legacy media, establishment media sources. These are not cranky sources. In Georgia, according to an estimate in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, again, the leading newspaper of that city, only 30% of healthcare workers have been inoculated. In Ohio, Governor Mike DeWine reported that 60% of nursing home workers refused the vaccine. Isn't that incredible? In Texas, the Texas Tribune reported in February that home health and assisted living agencies may not be able to service their clients because so many caregivers are refusing to be vaccinated. A Centers for Disease Control survey of skilled nursing facilities published in early February found that fewer than 40% of staff took at least one dose of a COVID-19 vaccine. Outside the United States, frontline workers are likewise skeptical. On March 2nd, Reuters reported that at most half of the nursing staff in Switzerland's medical sector, only 30% of the staff at Germany's Benevit Group care home operator, and about half of the healthcare workers in French care homes were willing to be vaccinated. What I'm saying is Larry's got a lot of proof points here, right? Like, we could go on. For healthcare workers around the world, their dilemma is who to believe. Their government employers and the pharmaceutical companies who insist the vaccine's benefits far outweigh the risks, or their own eyes. Many frontline workers see firsthand those who fall sick or die after receiving a COVID-19 vaccine. And in the absence of independent analyses, judge for themselves whether the vaccine is implicated. They noted 23 nursing home deaths in Norway and hundreds of hospitalizations in Israel following vaccination. Frontline workers also suffer from vaccinations themselves, as Reuters reported in February in an article entitled AstraZeneca Vaccine Faces Resistance in Europe After Healthcare Workers Suffer Side Effects. Quote, the adverse effects hitting healthcare workers have unexpectedly left large numbers unable to work, forcing hospitals to scramble to maintain services. So the vaccine is making hospitals less strong. In France, the safety agency advised hospitals to stagger the inoculation of team members to avoid disabling team functions. The COVID virus didn't do that, the inoculation did that. In Sweden, two of the country's 21 healthcare regions paused vaccinating their staff after 25% of the vaccinated suffered fever or flu-like symptoms. In Austria, inoculations with a batch of vaccines were suspended after one vaccinated nurse died and another required hospitalization. Let's scroll down a little bit. And I'm just going to pick up at the bottom there. And all urge media and social media to be more vigilant in policing negative vaccination news. Yeah, in offering pointers on how to debunk critics, a Columbia Journalism Review on March 5th told media companies that the first rule of reporting on mis and disinformation is don't talk about the mis or disinformation, and suggested they consider the practice of pre-bunking, that is, actively debunking or anticipating public questions and concerns rather than only reacting once false narratives are being popularized. Although studies show that such assurances in public education campaigns, also known as propaganda, can reduce vaccine hesitancy, Gallup finds their effect is marginal. Quote, the limited COVID-19 vaccine acceptance rates among all occupation groups show little movement since November 2020. I'll read the last paragraph. The CDC does not explain why continued focused communications and outreach, i.e. more of the same, would overcome worker hesitancy when workers don't fully trust the data or those who deliver the data. To overcome that trust barrier and win over the frontline workers, people who have every incentive to protect themselves, the media would need to lift the censorship. Industry would need to subject its studies to independent scrutiny, and all would need to engage in reasoned debate rather than trust us assurances. That's written by our friend Lawrence Solomon, columnist, author, and I should tell you, he's also on our board of advisors. What do you think of that, Justin? Was that a heck of an article? Would you agree with me that was very well footnoted? Like, we clicked on, I think, just one link there, but all of those links are clickable. I have not seen such a compelling case in one place before. Have you? Did you know that many Healthcare workers are saying no? You did, you knew that. And did you know that, I knew that also, but I didn't know that so many healthcare workers who got the shot fell ill, they had to that's what was news to me. You didn't know either? Very interesting. What bothers me about that article is the Columbia journalism part, where they're so focused on debunking or pre-bunking. How about be focused on reporting, you know? How about if there's a problem, let us know? I should remind our viewers, and we're almost out of time here, before any video we make on the pandemic, we run like a few seconds of a disclaimer. The warning, censorship, warning, censorship. Maybe we should freshen that up with a new version. I don't mind it, but maybe just to keep it fresh. The reason we do that is because we are advised by YouTube that if we contradict certain official political positions on the pandemic, vaccines, health risks, whatever, if we contradict the official narrative, we will get what's called a policy strike. And you get 3 strikes and your YouTube channel's taken down. You get 1 strike, you lose certain, you can't monetize things, you don't get super chats, you get 2 strikes, you can't, and then 3 strikes, you're just shut down. So we have been threatened by YouTube that if we don't put a big disclaimer on shows like this one, we'll be taken off YouTube. That is censorship, and that is why, maybe they think that increases trust in authorities. I don't think it does, because if these vaccines are so safe, let the truth out. If there's a problem, let the truth out. You would think if they're safe, you would want more coverage, not less. Who said let truth and falsehood grapple? That's how it is. When was the last time you saw a lie defeat the truth? In the end. Maybe for a moment, but in the end, the truth, I think, comes out. Why are Denmark, Iceland, and Norway suspending AstraZeneca vaccines, but Canada is pushing them through? Not just pushing them through, but we're changing how they're supposed to be administered. I think you're supposed to have 1 shot and then another shot just a few weeks later, right? But in Canada, we're stretching that out to 4 months, and AstraZeneca is saying don't do that. Like what? Isn't it obvious? It's because Trudeau and Patty Hajdu screwed up the vaccination procurement. So they're changing the dosage and the timing. They are making citizens into guinea pigs, and I say no thanks. And the thing is, as Larry Solomon's piece in the Epoch Times points out, there's a lot of skeptics out there, whether it's 20, 30, 40%. But that also means there's a lot of people who aren't skeptics, who either don't know or trust the government or just make a decision that they have to. So you got 40, 50, 60% of people say, sure, jab me. That's what scares me. Viking and saying many credit Montreal smoked meat to Montreal Jews. Well, of course, the very famous Schwartz's Hebrew Delicatessen. I don't even know if it's still open, but one of the finest restaurants in New York if you like smoked meat. Montreal. Kim's Aria, $5. Is there a list of mask-free friendly businesses by city? I would like to vote with my dollars and support those businesses. I don't think there is such a list, but there are some businesses that don't scrutinize you closely when you come in without a mask. Here's what I mean by that. You can go to maskexemption.ca to check for yourself. But my recollection is that every mask bylaw in Canada has an exemption. Some have different exemptions. Some it's the age of the kid. Some it's for medical or for, they all have exemptions. And many of them specifically say a storekeeper is not allowed to ask for proof of an exemption. So every business in Canada, under the law, has a mask exemption because there's a mask exemption in every law. So the only question is, how abusive are the staff? There are some stores that are really easy peasy about it. I think a lot of it depends on how you carry yourself. I just go in confidently, and I'm not going in all defensive. There are some stores that are quite abusive on this, and that's, 45 minutes ago I had a super chat. Someone said, "Hey, when are you getting your human rights campaign against masks launched?" I'm slow on that. Let's see if we can get that out next week. So we will have a solution for folks like you. I think we're caught up on the super chats. Is that right? I see a regular chat from JB. Ezra, favorite Toronto deli show. Well, we have been talking about a show called What's Your Beef? And I got to tell you, it's not just because I like him politically, but I do believe that Adamson's Barbecue, their brisket, is the best in Toronto. Do you have an opinion on that? Justin thinks it's very good. Is there a better one? You don't eat a lot of brisket? You eat pork ribs a lot? You like their ribs? Do you like Montana's? When I go to that Montana's, the one that was on the front page of the Sun, what I like about them is they have a huge beef rib. Like, it's huge. And how many places you go in anywhere, you get the big beef ribs? It's not that common a menu item. That's what I like about Montana's. But I think Adamson's is great. I know that's a Toronto-centric point of view. There is great beef to be found all over this country. And that's why one day we might have a show called What's Your Beef? And we would just learn more about it. Especially if, God willing, restaurants are opening up again, as that sushi joint seems to be on Steeles in Toronto. All right, folks, it's 1:06. I think I'm caught up. Thanks for your super chats today. Thanks for your support. Justin, thanks for your help. I'm going to go now. I'll be back on Monday. I think I'm here all week next week, so I'll be Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Sheila and David will be Tuesday, Thursday. Do we have a dog video? Oh, okay. So I'm going to say goodbye now. We're going to end with a dog video. And Justin, I got some dog videos I might actually share with you that I took of my own dog. But that we'll do it another time. Okay, here's the dog video. Take a look.
Ja,